Oh man, it's a beautiful day out here today on Wrightsville Beach. But buying the wrong home here in Wilmington, North Carolina can cost you thousands of dollars or more. And many coastal buyers don't realize what they're walking into until it's their problem to solve. So in this video, I'm going to take you through 6 specific types of homes that you need to be seriously cautious about if you're buying anywhere in the greater Wilmington area. Hi, I'm Kimberly Crouch with eXp Realty, a coastal realtor here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I've been helping buyers relocate to coastal North Carolina for years, and I've seen firsthand what happens when buyers don't know what to look for in our unique coastal market. Before I get into the 6 types, I want to explain why Wilmington specifically has more of these hidden traps than many buyers expect. First, our coastal geography. We're sitting between the Atlantic Ocean, the Intracoastal Waterway, and the Cape Fear River. Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, and our waterfront communities are gorgeous, but they're also in FEMA flood zones sometimes. The reality is that every property here has a flood zone designation. It's just that some of these flood zones fall into an area where lenders require flood insurance and some don't. Second, our hurricane history. We've been hit by Florence, Matthew, and Hazel, and some others. Coastal North Carolina gets storms that inland markets just usually don't see. And that hurricane risk affects everything from insurance costs to building codes to what types of materials can survive here long term. Third, our soil conditions. Much of our area sits on sandy coastal soil, and that's great for drainage during normal weather. But when we get 58 inches of rain per year, often in massive storm events, that sandy soil creates foundation and drainage challenges that buyers from other climates might not expect. And fourth, our building stock. Downtown Wilmington has some of the most beautiful historic homes you'll find anywhere on the East Coast. And coastal weather is harder on older buildings and their foundations than buyers realize. Understanding these 4 things is what lets you walk into any property in this market and know what to look for. Let's take a look at them so you don't get hit with an expensive surprise. Right now, I'm standing on Wrightsville Beach, and there can be flood risk when you're this close to the ocean. So just over to my right, the ocean is there, and there's an inlet, and just to my left are some homes. And you can see the beautiful waterfront that draws so many people to this area. But this proximity to water, both the ocean and the Intracoastal Waterway, can create a big financial surprise for new coastal buyers, and that's flood insurance. Properties near Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, all of our beaches, portions of Wilmington near the ICW are in FEMA designated flood zones. And a lot of buyers don't find this out until they're already under contract and have thousands of dollars at risk in due diligence fees. Honestly, it's best to look into these costs before you make an offer. So here's what that costs you. Flood insurance. Through the NFIP averages $925 a year in North Carolina. That's higher than the national average of $888, mainly because of how often we get hit by hurricanes and how much coastline we have. And in high-risk coastal areas like Wrightsville Beach, that number can be significantly higher. A home in the X flood zone, where lenders don't require flood insurance, may get optional flood insurance for maybe $1,000 per year. It varies. While one in a higher risk flood zone could cost $5,000 or into 5 figures. And if you're in a flood zone other than the X zone, your lender will require flood insurance. Flood zone properties can appraise lower, which creates financing complications for you as a buyer and reduces your pool of future buyers. So now let's talk about what to look for on a walkthrough. Check the property's elevation relative to the waterway. Ask for an elevation certificate if it's in a flood zone, if one exists. Pay attention to the yard and any signs of previous water intrusion. Look for water stains on exterior walls. Ask the listing agent if there's any history of flooding. And for homes closer to the water, take a close look at any ground level living space. Converted garages, finished bonus rooms, additions that sit well below the base flood elevation. That ground level space can flood in a storm event, and insurance may not cover what's down there the way that you might expect it to. And check the crawl space for any moisture indicators. It's hot and humid here a lot of the time, and since we're close to sea level or right at it, crawl spaces can take a beating over time. That can lead to standing water under the home, rotten floor joists, and an environment that termites love. It's hard to see when you're touring a home, and fixing crawl space issues can easily cost $20,000 or more. Here's what to look for. Standing water in the crawl space is the first red flag. Many homes in our area have already had this addressed with encapsulation. The next step up is a dehumidifier in the crawl space, and beyond that is a sump pump to remove any water that pools regularly. immediately. So let's go look at a crawl space and let me show you what to look for. So I am going to show you what a 1980s built townhome community crawl space looks like. So first off, how do you even know there's a crawl space? You can see it on the exterior. The listing will tell you if it's a crawl space. Let's take a look at this one. So you can see here, that is the crawl space area. It's probably 2 feet. So here is underneath this crawl space. You can see there's some old insulation. It's hanging down. I mean, that's going to get noted in an inspection. Replaced. It's not encapsulated. It's sandy. That's our sandy soil here. I don't see any standing water. Some of your electrical running through back in there, if you can see that. But essentially, you may find a cleaner crawl space where it has been encapsulated with plastic on the ground. But in this case, it's pretty dry. It looks good. I don't see any red flags other than that hanging insulation. But that's kind of the extent of what I do at a showing. I just want to look, make sure there's no big issues, and then leave the details to the inspector. One other thing to consider in townhomes, whose crawl space is this? And the answer to that is it depends. So with a townhome community, if it's shared space, it might be HOA controlled. If it's separated, it might be owner controlled. It's going to vary depending on the townhome community. So you just want to make sure that you figure that out and understand that. And the way you do that is read the covenants. You can also ask the HOA, but I would verify it with the covenants as well. And one trick, it's kind of nice these days, you can put those 100-page documents that were filed publicly in whenever the community was developed straight into ChatGPT and ask it to read and summarize for you. And you can always verify it yourself. In Wilmington, the property is evaluated for flood risk if it's near a water source, a creek, river, the ICW, or the ocean. That risk goes up, and properties on our local islands like Carolina Beach, Wrightsville Beach, even more so. In fact, roughly 90% of properties in New Hanover County are not in high-risk flood zones, despite all the water around us. So please don't be scared by this. Just be aware and do your research. But you may still want to get flood insurance just to protect yourself and give yourself peace of mind. FEMA maps change. The seller may not have needed flood insurance when they purchased, but if the maps have shifted and you're getting a loan, you may be required to carry it. Always check the current FEMA maps for the specific address, not just the neighborhood. So what should you look for? Properties that are elevated. If you don't want to carry flood insurance, focus on homes in the X flood zone. Also consider newer construction that's built to current flood resistant standards. And always pay attention to the drainage plan for the neighborhood. The reality, a lot of people live here. I live here. I don't worry about my home flooding every day, if ever. My house has a crawl space. I'm okay with that. My point is just to understand flood risks, know the costs, and buy something you're comfortable with. Downtown Wilmington, let's take a look at these amazing historic homes. Look over here, we have churches and big live oaks with Spanish moss hanging from them. Now let me tell you about some of the hidden risks of these gorgeous old historic homes. Charm doesn't pay for foundation, plumbing, and electrical repairs. I'm talking about properties in the historic downtown area, many of which are 80, 100, sometimes 150 years old. And much of Wilmington has brick ranch homes built from the 1950s to 1970s all throughout Wilmington. Here's what to watch out for. The average cost of a foundation crack repair in Wilmington is between $5,000 and $15,000. This wide discrepancy in price is due to the fact that the price depends on each individual situation. Bigger damages require more complex solutions, but foundation issues are just the beginning. Electrical systems in pre-1980 homes often need complete replacement. Plumbing in homes from this era can be galvanized steel that's corroded from coastal humidity. And roofing on a large historic home can run $15,000 to $30,000 or more. What to look for on a walkthrough? Don't be fooled by cosmetic updates. Fresh paint and new fixtures can hide significant structural issues. Pay attention to the floors. Do they feel spongy or uneven when you walk on them? Check whether doors stick or don't close properly. Look at the electrical outlets and check the plumbing fixtures. If you see galvanized steel pipes, plan on replacement within a few years. Trust your nose in older homes. Musty odors indicate moisture problems that can lead to wood rot or mold. Inspection tip. For any home built before 1950, bring in specialists beyond the general inspector, a structural engineer for foundation concerns, a licensed electrician for electrical safety, and request documentation for any major updates. Also ask about lead-based paint testing if you are planning on renovations or have concerns about lead-based paint. Sellers are required to provide a lead-based paint disclosure for any home built prior to 1960 1978. It requires special handling for renovation. And here's the better alternative. Look for historic homes where the major systems have already been updated and documented. I sold a 1930s home last summer that was in great shape. The seller had done all the major work and updated the bathrooms and kitchen while preserving the original character. This home was in high demand and went under contract in 8 days. A 100-year-old home with a new roof, updated electrical, modern HVAC, and a structural report showing solid foundation is a completely different investment than one where all the original systems are still in place. Also consider newer construction within historic districts. You get the neighborhood character without the historic maintenance challenges. Before we go further, if you want help determining which coastal area is best for you, I've put together a free North Carolina coastal decision guide to help you understand the different areas and costs so you can figure out where you want to land. Grab it for free from the link in the description. It's there to help you. So let's keep going because the next one involves a fire safety issue that many buyers don't know to look for. The next issue is one that's invisible until it becomes dangerous. I'm talking about homes built before 1950, and there are many of them throughout Wilmington that still have original electrical systems, or homes built from 1965 to the mid-70s that were wired with aluminum wiring. Both of these create real fire risk. A complete electrical system upgrade in an older Wilmington home can run $8,000 to $20,000 depending on the size of the house and the complexity of the work. But the bigger issue is insurance. Many insurance companies won't cover homes with outdated electrical systems, or they'll charge significantly higher premiums. And here's where it gets tricky for financing. Your lender requires homeowners insurance to close. If the insurance company won't issue a policy due to electrical concerns, your closing gets delayed or falls through entirely. So here's a real situation I worked through last year. Home buyers purchasing an early 1970s home. This home was right on the brink of when buried oil tanks stopped being used as a primary heating source. But we have that checked out just to make sure there was not one there, and we didn't find anything. So that was a win for the buyers. What we did uncover during the inspection was aluminum wiring. Aluminum wiring at the branch circuits can expand and contract, causing it to overheat and become a fire hazard. We had a licensed general contractor talk us through the options, which include tearing out drywall and redoing the entire electrical system, or mitigating the aluminum wire at the main panel box only. What to look for on a walkthrough. Check the electrical panel. A fuse box instead of a circuit breaker panel is a red flag. It almost always means the system hasn't been updated to modern standards. Count the outlets in each room. Older homes typically have fewer outlets. And look for 2-prong outlets throughout the house. That indicates underground wiring. Pay attention during the showing to any flickering lights. Depending on how the lights flicker, you could be having problems with surging, faulty wiring, shortened wires, or other causes. Inspection tip. For any home built before 1980, hire a licensed electrician to do a separate electrical inspection beyond what the general home inspector provides. Ask for documentation of any electrical work. Was it permitted and inspected? And if the home has aluminum wiring, get a specific assessment of fire risk and repair costs. The better alternative, focus your research on homes with documented electrical upgrades, not just updated electrical in the listing description. Actual permits and inspection records. For older homes, look for properties where the electrical panel has been replaced with modern circuit breakers and the wiring has been brought up to current code. This next issue is specific to our coastal location. However, Wilmington's year-round rain totaling approximately 58 inches, hurricane vulnerability, and sandy soils can threaten a home's structural integrity. Whether the soil is too wet or too dry, unstable soil cannot properly support your foundation or your home. You'll start to notice settling, uneven floors, wall cracks, bowing walls, and other issues. What makes this tricky is that sandy soil drains well during normal weather, but when we get hit with heavy rains, which happens sometimes, that same sandy soil can become unstable, and homes that weren't built with proper drainage systems can develop ongoing moisture problems. The region is known for its variable moisture levels, which can cause the soil around homes to expand and contract. This changeability is part due to the sandy and loamy soils found throughout the area, and these soils lacking stability can lead to movements that place unexpected stress on foundations. Additionally, Additionally, the nearby coast contributes to high humidity and groundwater fluctuations, which can exacerbate the impact of shifting soils. This dynamic relationship between soil and moisture becomes a key factor in why homes in this area can experience foundation issues over time. Here's what this can cost. Water intrusion problems can lead to mold remediation costs of approximately $2,000 to $5,000 or more. Foundation stabilization due to soil movement or floor joist rotting can run approximately $5,000 to over $20,000. And if the drainage issues are severe, you might need a complete drainage system installation, approximately $8,000 to $20,000. What to look for on a walkthrough. Pay attention to the grading around the house. The ground should slope away from the foundation on all sides. If water is draining toward the house, you may have problems during every heavy rain. Look at the gutters and downspouts. Are they directing water away from the foundation? A downspout that dumps water right next to the house is a red flag. Many homes have French drains installed to mitigate this problem and divert the water underground away from the house. And check for that white chalky residue on masonry walls, efflorescence, which indicates water has been moving through the wall. Walk through the property during or right after a rainstorm if possible. You'll see exactly how water moves around the house and whether there are drainage problems in the neighborhood. Also ask the current owner about any moisture issues they've dealt with. Sellers have the right to choose no representation on property disclosures, but listing agents are required to disclose any material facts. And a better alternative, look for properties where proper drainage has already been installed and maintained. Modern construction typically includes foundation drainage systems. Many new construction neighborhoods have a stormwater drainage plan. And for older homes, look for ones where the drainage issues have been addressed and with documented solutions. Proper grading, gutter systems, and potentially crawl space encapsulation, dehumidifiers, and sump pumps. And make sure you consider the entire neighborhood, or at least the portions that you will need to regularly access. So I am standing in front of a new construction home in a new construction community where the builder and the developer here have done a great job of grading and planning for stormwater runoff. This is an intercoastal waterway front access community. Over here on the side, I'll show you gutters with a French drain attached to divert runoff water, so you can see. So that puts water into the ground and away from the house. And the house is all graded well, so it's on just a gentle slope. The water runs away from the house. And then it's also on a concrete slab, so it's not on a crawl space. I want to pause here for just a second because everything I'm showing you today comes from real situations I've helped clients navigate in the Wilmington market. The flood insurance surprises, the historic home maintenance costs. Local knowledge is critical. Knowing which specific properties in our coastal market are right for you and which documentation to ask for before you make an offer, that's a conversation worth having before you start seriously looking. And you want to have that conversation with someone who knows the area. So if you're planning to relocate to Wilmington and want someone to walk you through these issues before you get under contract, just give me a call or a text at 910-218-8187. Numbers down below. Now, 2 more home types. And these last 2 catch even experienced buyers off guard, like me. Maintenance-free coastal living sounds perfect until you get the special assessment letter. Condos and townhomes throughout the Wilmington area, especially our beach communities, are popular with relocating buyers. The appeal is obvious. No yard work, shared amenities, great waterfront locations. But the HOA that manages these communities is the variable that most buyers don't investigate closely enough. Here's what a poorly managed HOA can actually cost you. Monthly HOA fees in coastal condo communities commonly run $300 to $800 per month, sometimes more. Now remember, that often includes master insurance, which greatly reduces your individual unit insurance costs. But that is on top of your mortgage payment. And the real surprise is special assessments. So my family bought a townhome in a highly desirable location during the COVID years when inventory was scarce. We didn't have much time to research prior to making an offer. Now, we did look at the HOA financials and noticed lower reserves than we wanted, but it wasn't a deal breaker for us. Within 6 months of closing, we received a $12,000 assessment along with every other owner in the community. The HOA board did a great job working through all of this and balancing the concerns homes of hundreds of owners while restoring the structures and maintaining long-term home values. But here's what I would have done differently since this experience. I asked for HOA minutes back at least a year, ideally 2. They aren't always easy to get. Be persistent. Had I read those more closely back then, I probably could have anticipated the assessment. And the financials tell you where the HOA stands today. The minutes tell you what's coming. When reserves are underfunded in coastal weather damages buildings, owners get hit with these surprise bills. And in beach communities, these assessments tend to be higher because hurricane-resistant materials and coastal construction are expensive. And the rising cost of insurance adds to the HOA's burden. What to look for on a walkthrough. Walk the common areas of the complex. If the landscaping looks neglected, the pool needs maintenance, or the building exteriors show obvious wear that hasn't been addressed, those are signals about management priorities. Ask directly about any pending or recent special assessments. Inspection tip, request the HOA financial statements for the last 2 years and the minutes. Look at the reserve fund balance. It should be building up, not declining. Also request the reserve study, which estimates future major maintenance needs and whether the HOA has set aside adequate funds. Ask for the last 12 months of board meeting minutes or the last 24 months. And make sure you understand the water and septic systems and whether or not the roads are privately maintained. The better alternative. Look for HOA communities with a track record of proactive maintenance and well-funded reserves, with annual meeting minutes that show clear cooperation between the board and community homeowners. Ask for documentation of recent major improvements and how they were funded. If you see that roofs need to be replaced in the next 10 years and there's only $20,000 in reserves, ask what the plan is to raise those funds. Also consider newer coastal communities where the major building systems are still under warranty and reserve fund requirements are clearly land. This last one is specific to our intracoastal waterway and waterfront properties. Properties right on the ICW or with direct water access are absolutely gorgeous. They're also subject to environmental regulations and coastal building restrictions that many buyers have never encountered before. And I'm talking about setback requirements from the water, septic system installations, bulkhead and dock permitting, and in some cases, restrictions on rebuilding, renovations, or additions due to environmental protection zones. Here's what can be surprising. There are certain areas near inlets designated as coastal inlet hazard areas with predictions on eroding coastlines. If you're considering a property in these areas, make sure you understand those risks. Homes that have moved past the first vegetation line on the ocean front due to changing shorelines are called non-conforming and cannot be rebuilt if destroyed more than 50%. If you want to add a deck, expand the house, or make significant renovations, you may need permits from both the county and state environmental agencies. Septic systems near waterways have special maintenance requirements, and if the system fails, replacement costs near the ICW can run $15,000 to $25,000 because of the environmental restrictions on where and how the new system can be installed. There's also erosion liability. If your property is losing land to water erosion, you may be responsible for stabilization, which can cost $20,000 to $75,000 or more, depending on the waterfront length. What to look for on a walkthrough. Check how close the house and any outbuildings are to the water. Check to see if the property is non-conforming. If structures appear to be very close to the high water mark, ask about compliance with current setback rules and check with the county. Look at any bulkheads, retaining walls, or erosion control measures like sandbags. Are they in good condition? And check the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's website for the most updated coastal inlet hazard area erosion maps, and pay attention to the septic system location if the property isn't on city or county water and sewer. For any waterfront property, request a current survey showing setbacks and easements and about if any existing environmental permits for the bulkhead or dock. And verify that the septic system has been inspected and meets current environmental requirements. The better alternative, look for waterfront properties where the environmental compliance issues have already been addressed. Properties with proper setbacks, maintained bulkheads, and compliant septic systems. Also consider newer waterfront construction that are up to date with the current standards that often eliminates the costs of these regulatory risks over the next few decades. Between flood insurance, foundation repairs, electrical upgrades, HOA surprises, and shoreline erosion, the wrong coastal property can cost you $50,000 or more in unexpected expenses. But buyers who know what to look for can find incredible properties that give them that coastal lifestyle without the financial headaches. or they can choose to take on repairs within their budget. The difference is having someone who understands this market walk you through the process before you start looking. I'm Kimberly Crouch with eXp Realty, your coastal relocation specialist, offering you an authentic coastal luxury experience at every price point.